Can you tell us about yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Cynthia Nikitin, and I'm a Vice President with Project for Public Spaces in New York City. And we're an urban planning and design firm. We're a nonprofit organization, and we work internationally on creating great public spaces and great destinations around the world.
What is placemaking you are explaining?
Placemaking is the process of creating public spaces with and for the people who will be using them. So placemaking includes community engagement in the design and planning and management. It includes activities and uses that bring people to a space on a regular basis. Placemaking also includes managing and maintaining and evaluating the public space and improving it over time. And it's more than just design. It's more than just community design. That is a part of it, but it really takes a lot of partners and stakeholders and people to create a place that will have lasting meaning to the community that's using it.
What is the most important fact in placemaking?
The most important fact is we say the community is the expert. It's engaging the users of a public space, the residents, the building owners, the property owners, the restaurants, the cultural institutions, everyone who is around a space, engaging them in coming up with identifying the issues and the problems that need to be addressed, and then identifying the solutions and the ideas for what they would like to see there and what would bring them to it. So engaging the community early on in the process and throughout the process is key. And the community really is the client. They're the ones that we are designing the spaces for ultimately.
How many times have you visited in Korea, and what do you do? Usually?
This is my 5th trip to Korea, and I usually give lectures on placemaking, and I've done that in Okcheon and at the Korea Design Foundation, the Hope Institute. I've presented at 2 of their conferences. One was a garden symposium, the other was a public space design conference. I gave a lecture at the Convention and Expo Bureau a year and a half ago in New Songdo City. And this time I am doing lectures at Seoul National University, the Asia Creative Academy, which is where we are now, the University of Seoul, and the Architecture Urban Research Institute.
Whenever you come to Korea, are there any changes in placemaking, you think?
Well, there's been a lot of new projects that have been done, and they're very large and very significant infrastructure. However, they're still not creating great gathering places for people. There are more spaces to move through than to come to. They're more formal, and sort of the idea is we say, look but don't touch, neat, clean, and empty. They're really not creating great gathering, cultural or civic gathering spaces. They're more formal design statements that are really meant to be viewed but not really enjoyed. So that's one change. I also have noticed more CCTV cameras and a more interest and emphasis on security in public spaces, which I don't remember in previous visits. And also there are many cafes and there are many civic social gathering spaces, but they're not free. You know, to sit in a cafe you have to purchase something. So in some ways the most lively active spaces are privately owned, those in cafes or restaurants or the malls. So the public realm is still not having the same amount of investment or focus on creating those lively gathering spaces.
You visited 5 times, and which part of Korea do you want to change by using placemaking?
I think that the way to start is in some of the smaller provinces and towns and villages. We were in Jiangsu village on Saturday in Seongbok-do province, and that has a very lovely commercial main street and a park and a museum and a very famous taxi restaurant. And I think working in smaller areas, little downtown main streets, or we were in Maronié Park yesterday, smaller parks, smaller places, to improve them and then link them together. So to do placemaking not with big major large-scale, expensive, long-term projects, but actually to work on smaller places, making them better, and then linking them together to create sort of more of a place-making framework for the rest of the city. So we start small and then build up. And I feel that in Seoul, the Seoul City of Design and the World Design Center, it's big projects and it's very top-down. And we recommend small projects and bottom-up.
Compared to America, Korea is different, like population density. We have a small area to live, and people is very crowded. America is a big country, and then maybe enough space for like placemaking, and there's difference. So what do you think about the difference, and how can we use it like for Korean?
I think that in very dense cities where people have small living spaces, the public spaces are even more important. The streets and the parks and the sidewalks are really where much of the social life happens, where business happens, and where people want to leave their apartments to have some more breathing space. In a large country like the US, we have a lot of suburbia, we have a lot of sprawl, and people don't really value public space as much because they do have bigger homes or they have larger yards and spaces to be, so it's not actually as valued or as vital as it is in a place like Korea. And we have downtowns that are empty at 5 o'clock in the afternoon when people leave the city. And I think that in Seoul it's much more of a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week city and place. So the public spaces are used much more intensively, which means they really need to be managed intensively and they need to be designed to accommodate the use. So the challenge is greater, and I think the importance of public space in a place like Seoul is even more important than it is in many cities in the United States.
Can you tell the Korean who is interested in placemaking, and what do you give them advice? What kind of advice do you want to give?
Not to focus on design exclusively, to talk to the users, to interview people, to study how a public space works before you start making design changes to it, to work with partners, and not to think that as a designer or an architect you have to do the whole program or project yourself, that there are many different skills that are required to create great places. So to seek out those partners and work with them, and also to start with the partners, then create the vision plan, and then look for the money to do the implementation. And also to start with short-term experiments, to do things on a short-term basis, evaluate how successful they are, change them, and then make permanent changes. So to do things in phases and incrementally over time.
Thank you very much.
전 많아요. I think the case, most of the projects that we work on, there's just not enough activity happening. These are underutilized spaces or they're vacant and there's just not a lot of people there. I think in this case we may have the opposite problem, that there's a lot of people and a lot of activity in some areas, and in other areas there's not very much going on. So it may be a matter of moving things around or finding ways to activate the less busy places to sort of take the pressure off of some of the spaces that have maybe too much activity. So that's kind of the framework for our exercise today in terms of what the context is. Okay, so this is the process for working with people to transform spaces into places. This is what our public spaces are. And these are the areas that we work in. Transportation, we do a lot of work with transit, with buses, subways, trains, downtown campuses, universities, squares, and public markets. And these are all the kinds of public spaces that every city has. We've been doing this for quite a while, and all over the US and in Canada, and in many countries around the world. We'd like to do more work in Korea. We'd like to do more work internationally as well. So when we say placemaking, what is placemaking? It's not an easy word to define, and we asked our members to give us the definition, and we got 700 definitions of what placemaking means to them. So these are some of them. But part of it is creating places where people want to go and want to linger and spend time rather than just pass through. And it's also looking at how you design the built environment to create community. So how architecture, landscape architecture, design, the arrangement of buildings and public spaces can actually create a sense of community and interaction between people, encourage people to start new businesses or relocate businesses here, and actually nurturing humanity. So it's a lot. It's a lot to do. So these are some of our sort of philosophical statements. I'm going to take you through some of our philosophy, some of our principles, some examples, and then we'll get to the workshop. And we'll talk about what we'll be doing this afternoon. So people think that the answer to everything or to creating a great city or place is design. And I know that Seoul was the World Design Capital, and Seoul is the UNESCO City of Design, and I know that there's a lot of emphasis on design, but design is not the only skill or quality or element of a great public space. It's very important, but it's not the only thing. So here we have Cheonggyejeong, which was designed, and I mean, the idea behind the project is quite commendable, but in terms of use and activities, there really wasn't designed for, there were not programs imagined. People now bring their own programming to it, and there are events and festivals, but it was really designed as a formal space and kind of more of a landscape architecture statement than a great square or riverfront walkway. And in some places, this is in Malaysia, in Penang on the right, the element of design is sometimes invisible because things kind of feel very chaotic, very temporary, very flexible. There's a lot of energy in those places. And so if we focus too much on design, we don't get the kind of energy and dynamic activity that we want to see. William White was our founder and mentor, and he's an author. And he said, it's hard to create a space that will not attract people. What is remarkable is how often this has been accomplished. And sometimes as designers, we spend a lot of time with objects and with seating and benches and lighting and sort of sculpting the public space, when in fact, sometimes just a big, beautiful tree with some benches is all you need to attract people. So sometimes the design, it's more of a natural kind of an element. It can be very, very simple. So this is in Tokgol Park on the left, and it's all old men mostly, and I thought that they should bring in like women and teach the men to dance. There's nothing to do here. Okay, so there's no seating or chairs, so the men are sitting on the sculpture, they're sitting on the sidewalk, there's no shelter, there's no place to get tea, there are no places to play games, cards or checkers or chess. And this population of older men, you could bring in nurses and doctors to check their blood pressure, or to give them medication, or to teach them how to cook. I don't know. This is a population that has a lot of health requirements, and so there's ways of programming that. But right now, it's really it's a very formal place. It's not very comfortable, and people will use places even if they're not comfortable, if they want to be there. People love to watch people. A tree, people. All you need is like trees, other people, Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi, and ice cream or coffee, and that's it. Really, really, public space, coffee, Wi-Fi, tree. It's very simple. So here we have the Gyeongbokgung Palace. I'm trying to pronounce that. Tourists are taking pictures of other tourists, as well as the spectacle. And at the federal government, it's a beautifully landscaped space, but it doesn't really attract people. It's really there to look at but don't touch. And I feel like a lot of the public spaces in Seoul look but don't touch. The new boulevard leading up to the South Gate that you walk, you go, okay, I'm done. It's not designed to linger. It's designed to look at, but not touch. And we like to touch. The design of streets and roads has a tremendous impact on how people use public spaces. And the ability to kind of walk down a street and see your neighbor is really quite important. And there's many, many streets like that in Seoul. I'm staying on Haehano, the University Street, which is just full of people all the time. But there's also a lot of streets in Seoul that are like this, like the one outside, which is really, it seems that your streets are either only for people, pedestrians, or only for cars and buses. And the best streets serve all users, cyclists and transit motorists and pedestrians. So they're very important. So this is how we see most cities today, and Seoul City obviously has all of these things. And in this case, I think our park has many of these elements as well, but they're not necessarily connected. They're not doing programs together. They're not located near one another, and they all serve the same people, at different times of our lives, or times of the day. But they're all in their own, we call them silos, which is where you store grain. These huge towers, this is just wheat, and this is soybeans, and this is corn, and this is how city governments operate, and departments operate, and civic institutions in their own silo. They never really think about turning themselves inside out, and sharing resources and programs and information and using the public spaces around them. So we have a lot of cultural institutions around this area. The question is, do you know what's inside when you're in the park? Do you know that there's an art center or a theater? Do you know that, how do these buildings communicate their mission and purpose in the public space? Do they? And if they don't, how could they? How might they? So you have a library next to a park, but there's no outdoor reading room. The librarians are not doing story time with children in the park. They're not using the park, but they're complaining that their library is too small. So we talk about thinking outside the box and thinking beyond the walls of the building. So when you're outside, think about what these institutions could do in the park. So these are some of our principles for creating great public spaces. There are 11 of them. You can get this on our website, pps.org. You can download these as well, and you can read more about them, so you don't have to copy furiously. Want to go online. So the first and most important thing, number one and number 100, is the community is the expert. And that the best way to understand how to improve a space, or how well it's working, or what needs to be improved, is to talk to the people in the space. So we do a lot of user interviews and surveys and focus groups and community meetings to get information from the people who know the space well. Yesterday I was in Sangbok-do, and we were doing a project with the Asia Creative Academy in Jongsu Village. I hope I got that right. And in this village there is this taxi restaurant. And it's this restaurant where all the taxi drivers from Seoul go and eat their lunch and get their taxis fixed. And it's really not a very pretty spot. And they're doing a lot of sort of beautification and planning. And they say, oh, we want the taxi drivers to go. The cafe is ugly, the cars are smelly, bad. And we say, no, it's a very interesting destination. But how would you make this taxi restaurant better? You go and have lunch with the taxi drivers, and you ask them what they would like to have there, what would make it more comfortable for them, more attractive. They do a lot of barbecuing. Maybe they want to have picnic tables and eat outside. So they're the experts. The taxi drivers know exactly what is wrong with that hole and Parking lot is terrible, and they also have a lot of answers. So the community has a lot of information it can share with you, because you will never know as much about any place you work. You will never know more than the people who live there. So we always talk with the community, and we have processes and tools. And this game is one of the tools we use most of the time for getting this information from the community. We're talking about creating a place, not just a design. Design is one aspect, and placemaking is ongoing. This is the night market in Chinatown. So again, it's really more about the amenities and the activities and the uses, and the management is equally as important as the design. And I think you have that little, I'll talk about this in a minute, you have this diagram. So design is part of all of this, but it's not its own category. So this is an example of creating a place, not just a design. This is in New Haven, Connecticut, and this is the before, and the bottom is the after. So the first thing that we did was we took out parking spaces so we could widen the sidewalk. So that was more sort of a traffic engineering kind of a move to create more space for people. Because cars do not shop, people do. So when merchants say, oh, I need more parking, don't take away my parking, the answer is, the cars in front of your store are not buying things, it's the people walking by that are shopping. So that was the first step. And then other small steps happened after that. Once we created the space, the cafe put out the seating. The merchants improved their signage and painted the building. The building owner redid the facade with the brick. The tree commission planted trees. And then this little guy decided this would be a really good place to sell the newspaper. So design is, there is design obviously in this, but it's more about small-scale interventions and practices and contributions by many, many different partners. It takes many, many different partners to create a place. So these were many small changes that happened at about the same time that didn't cost a lot of money, and one built upon another, built upon another. And this is now a much more wonderful street corner than it was. But it's just one street corner, you know, and you can do this in many streets all over the city, all over Seoul as well. So partners are very, very important. And part of the fact is that, you know, cities have limited money, nonprofit groups have limited resources, people don't own everything, you know, it's like the subway owns their station, but they don't control the sidewalk next to it. So partners are really amongst the civic actors, the government actors, as well as the private sector actors as well. And also, partners are also the stakeholders. So the partners for this project are the Art Center and the Artist House and the university and the ticket booth. And all these institutions would be partners we would be talking to if we were redesigning this park. And sometimes partners have money and resources that you never knew about. And you never know what you're going to end up with. So we were working in a park in Cleveland, Ohio. And people said, we would love to have a carousel, merry-go-round carousel. It's horses, and you ride up and down on the horses. It's mechanical, and it's really fun. And they said, oh, too much money, too much money. And there was a little older gentleman there, and he said, well, I was the manager of that museum for 30 years, and when I left in 1980, there was a carousel in the basement in boxes, because there had been one and they put it away. But only this little man knew that it was there because he had worked in the building. So if he had not been at that meeting, they never would have known there was a carousel. So that's why you have to have an open and inclusive process, because that's where you get these wonderful surprises that allow things to happen too. So these are some partners, public partners, private partners. This is a bus stop in Los Angeles. The top is the before, and then the middle stage with the new shelter, and then this is the after. So the first thing is you had a bus stop next to a vacant lot, not a comfortable place to wait for the bus. So there was an arts group, theater group, that asked if they could use that lot for posters about theater plays and productions. So the city owned the lot, they took down the fence, and then the artists did the little landscaping and planted some trees and did the posters. Okay, so that's very small scale. That was the city and the artists. The transit agency gave the shelter. Then a restaurant moved in, and they decided to use this as an outdoor cafe. So this is our bus stop. One of these is a pointer, and I don't know, this one is still the bus stop here. But because this is city land, you can sit there at the cafe to wait for the bus and you don't have to buy anything. And then the restaurant also put out a cappuccino cart so that if your bus is coming, you can still get a coffee and get on the bus. So this is now, you know, a gateway to a neighborhood. It's not just a bus stop, it is now the entrance to a community. So there are 38,000 bus stops in Los Angeles County. And if you did this at 38,000 bus stops, you would create 38,000 wonderful public spaces. So the other message is it doesn't have to be a huge project. You like huge projects, you like New Songdo City. You like big cultural centers, big, big, big. We like small, small, small. And then you connect them, and then it becomes big. So you can even do things at a bus stop. Yogi Berra was a New York Yankees coach and who made up all these very funny sayings. And he said, they always say it can't be done, but it doesn't always turn out that way. There are always people that say, that will never work. Or they will say, oh, we tried that 20 years ago and it didn't work. If people are talking about it, try it again. Timing is very, very important, and sometimes ideas take 20 years until it's right. So there are always obstacles, but don't let them stop you. And those people that are opposing it, a project, the neighbors, the students, whoever it is, you need to talk to them and find out why. So that's why the community is the expert. You go to those people and you find out what their problems are and then see if you can address them in your planning. It's very important, these are all important, all important, to study the site you're working on. A lot of planning and design is done from an office building 20 kilometers away. You have to study the site and you have to spend time in the place and you have to watch what people are doing. And that's why this game is useful, because it forces people to go out and look at a space in a new way. So look at how they're working and what's working about them. So these are some of the techniques that we use in our user analysis. We track and count pedestrians. We ask people, talk to them, ask them questions. We do the game. Sometimes we study parking, how many cars are in the same parking space. We map where people are sitting. So this is an example of how we use some of that. So this is time-lapse filming, where you film an intersection over the course of a day or a week to see how it's being used. This is in New York, in Greenwich Village, near our office. And whenever you see, I'm going to push this again. Good. Whenever you see this means people space. And this was in Jongsu Village. We saw a lot of striping. This means no cars. But it doesn't say it's okay for people, but this could become, you know, a wider sidewalk or a planting, because this is, it's up for grabs, meaning no one is owning it. Cars can't use it, but pedestrians don't have the right. But we say, yes, you have to grab this. So this is near NYU, New York University. So there's just thousands of people moving through this area. There are many more people than cars. So we filmed how people were how they were using the intersection, because we wanted to redesign it to make it more comfortable for people. Like in Samsung-dong, they widened the sidewalk because there's so many pedestrians, but they took out the bike lane. So I'm not sure how I feel about that yet. So we did the filming, and then what you do is you project the film on the wall on tracing paper, and for every every little person that's walking, you draw a line, you follow them as they move through the intersection. So this, every line is a person here. So we tracked them, and as you can see, almost no one is using the existing crosswalks. So you know the crosswalks are in the wrong place because no one is using them. And they are crossing everywhere, mostly because there's not a lot of cars. So they have a lot of space. So this also tells us there are more pedestrians here than cars. They're using the street as a plaza, so that gives us the facts, the factual information to help us support our recommendations. So this is what the intersection looks like now. And this is our plan for redesigning it. We do a lot of drawing, but photo simulations on the computer are also very helpful. So I'll just first look at the streets. You see how wide they are? We've actually pushed the street in front of the building out here, narrowed them, moved. We have this great funny sculpture here. We moved it over here. And we've just created a lot more places for people to gather, because when I said placemaking is transforming a place from when you move through to when you go to, there was no place here to linger, so people were just walking back and forth. They weren't really stopping. So we created places for people to stop. And they're finally going to build this. I think we did this research like 9 years ago. So it takes time. So you need to create a vision. And that's part of working with the community and together is what is the big picture? What is the long-term vision? So we want Maronié Park to be a symbol of arts and culture for the city of Seoul. You know, whatever it is, there has to be a big idea that explains your long-term goals, so that when people are fighting and they say, I don't like that lamppost and I don't like that trash can, you can say, let's go back to the big vision. Let's think about the big ideas together. And these are the elements of what is in a vision: the goals, the use, the character. We look always at other public spaces that we like to say, what did I like about that space? I like the water fountain in Sonyu River Park. Did I get that right? It's a very interesting water fountain. What are the qualities of other spaces? And then you create a plan, and then also think about how the place will evolve over time, because places change, people change, places change, buildings change, this building changed. So we have to anticipate that what's out there now may not always be there, or how this place is used may change over time. So this is a big vision project that we did in Detroit, Michigan. And this is what we started with. A lot of streets and roads. Most of the public space in any city are streets and roads. And the secret to creating a great public space is to have small roads around it, or to use the road as part of the public space. This was the vision that the community had. And the city was turning 300 years old. It was a big anniversary. They wanted to create a heart, a central park for the city. And you may say, oh, it will never work. You know, how are you going to do this to create this? You're crazy. We had a lot of visionary people, leadership, political leadership, foundations, corporations, because they wanted a legacy project. So there was a lot of political support for doing what the community wanted. And this is what it looks like in the summer. So they rerouted the traffic. They connected. This is just like you have the monument to the university here. This was the monument for the founding of the city of Detroit. So they basically connected all of this together, because this is just out here by itself, you know, surrounded by cars. So now it's part of the park. And this is what it looks like in winter. So Seoul, like many cities in the world, is a 4-season city. So what do people do here in the wintertime? Is there use here? Can you sit out here under a blanket with a lamp and have coffee? Here they have ice skating and a Christmas tree. So think about how this place it's a perfect day today, but imagine it raining or snowing. How would you want to use this park? They have small seating areas, and they went around the country, the US, and they took ideas from other parks. You don't have to reinvent things. So there's water, there's seating, there's lots of programming, but everything is temporary. Like the stage here, this goes down into the ground, so you can do ice skating in the winter. The spaces have to be flexible, so you can do many different kinds of programs there year-round. And what I've noticed here is that there's not a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of stone and brick and permanent fixtures that can't be moved that make it very difficult, may make it difficult to do a lot of different programming. So flexibility is very important. And the city of Detroit has a lot of social and racial problems and a lot of disconnect between rich and poor. But this park is used by everybody. So this is where people feel like they are all citizens. They're all people of the city of Detroit. They're not black, they're not white, they're not rich, they're not poor. We're all citizens of Detroit. You know, we're all neighbors. So public spaces have an amazing ability to support social cohesion as well. Design needs to help people use a place. And design is not just about creating a beautiful object, it's about creating a beautiful object that people can use. So here is a beautiful seating wall. This is where design is so important. It is 18 inches, I think that's like 24 centimeters high, so it's a very comfortable sitting height. It's not too high, and it's not too low that you can't stand up. And then this, they could have put a point or a ball, they made it flat, so you can put your water bottle there or a little chess game. So these are the ways that beautiful elements are designed that are bright and comfortable for people to use them. Triangulation is sort of an interesting concept. It's really about connecting uses together and putting design elements together, not spreading them out, really putting all the good stuff together. So here, this is in Vancouver, British Columbia, and you have a place because there's a restaurant, parents are having a coffee, there's a water park, and the kids are playing. So you need to cluster and connect uses and cluster and connect amenities. A bench here and a tree there isn't going to be used, but a bench under a tree will be used more. And a bench under a tree next to a bus stop will be used a lot more. So we want to get the most use out of these features. Starting with the petunias is, I have to explain that it's really about experimenting. You know, petunias, you have them here, they're little flowers and they're out on the light poles and they die in the winter, but they are a beautiful thing and they're fast to put up and inexpensive. So we like to do short-term experiments to see how places are being used and then evaluate how that's working, and then do the longer-term, permanent, expensive changes after that. So in Paris, what they do every summer is they close the highway along the Seine River and they make it a beach. They make it a beach with lounge chairs. This is usually a highway. And spring is all temporary and it's just there for 2 months. And rock climbing, and it becomes a park in the summertime. So these are short-term, inexpensive. People come and they do dance classes. They have a little post office there, so there's little civic offices. Great seating. This is a really good bench. This is a really, really well-designed bench because you can sit on the edge and you can sit in and you can use the table. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 different groups of people using, there's one picture we have 9 different groups of people using the same bench, but no one feels crowded. You know, everyone has their own little space. So this is where design is also really important. And money is not the issue. We have the economy is not doing well in much of the world. People say we have no money. And we say what you do is first you find the partners, then you create the vision, and then you look for the money. Don't say, we can't do this, we have no money. You have to say, who are the partners, what is the vision, and then you look for the money, and the money will come. And sometimes doing things that are small scale or less expensive is even better. And management is key, you're never finished. we will build this building, and we have a building manager. I'm staying at the ACA offices, and there's a building manager. But we build public spaces and parks without ever thinking they have to be managed the same way as a building. And public spaces are just buildings, they're just outdoor buildings. So they have to be managed the same way a building is managed and programmed as well. So this is an example of a project we just finished that just opened, I guess about 5 months ago in Houston, Texas. This is Market Square. This is where Houston, the city of Houston, Texas was founded. So in the 1950s, they said, oh good, it's a park, let's put parking on it. So it was a parking lot. Then they took the cars off and they made it a park. But there was still very little to do there and nobody was really using it. And as you can see, there's a lot of one-way streets. So even if you want to come to the park, you don't know where to stop. You just keep going around and around the park. So this is what our process was these were our partners. Before we started doing any design, we spent not long, about 2 months, talking to property owners, residents, representatives of organizations and the restaurants in the area. And we had workshops like this to do the vision. We asked them how the park was redesigned and it wasn't working. How do you feel about the park? What would you keep? What would you change? What do you like? What would you like to do here? And what could we do right now that would make a big difference? And that was the foundation of our vision. So that was the input, the vision. Then we did the analysis of how this park was working. The way the paths were designed by the landscape architects, no offense, it made it very difficult to walk through the square in a comfortable way. Every time you wanted to go, you had to make a turn. You couldn't walk straight through. So when you're walking through the park today, also think about the desire lines. I want to go that way, but I can't because there's a building or there's no walkway. So how does the circulation through this park was not working well. There was artwork there that talked about the image and the history, but it was either hard to find or had been neglected. And even if you found the artwork, you couldn't walk from one to the other. So there was no way to get a complete feeling about the history because all the information about the history and the art was along these pathways and they weren't connected to each other. And there was really no reason to go there even though it was beautiful. No activities, nothing around the park was happening. None of the uses and businesses around the park were using the park. And unless you had a dog, to walk your dog, there was no reason to come down here. Another issue was that the signage was either too intense or missing or too subtle. Signage is very, very difficult to do well, really difficult to do well. So sometimes we oversign things or undersign them. So the signage didn't make it easy for you to find your way around here either. And most of the adjacent properties were parking lots, which are dead spaces. You know, maybe there'll be buildings here in the future, but there is nothing that makes you want to get in your car and then having to walk past a lot of parking lots. They really kill a downtown. So 50% of the uses that face the park was parking. But there were opportunities to have the park extend into the neighborhood and have the neighborhood extend into the park physically, visually, and programmatically. And to make this park the heart of a larger district. So not just thinking about this park or this park, but this park is the heart of a larger district that is about a 5 to 10 minute walk. So all of these, there was the symphony, the opera was here, theaters, children's theaters, community centers, restaurants, they were all here, but they had no presence in the park, and when you're in the park, you had no idea what you could walk to in 5 minutes. So this was the schematic design that we worked with. We go to concept, and then we turned over to a landscape architect to do the design with all of these elements that people wanted to see. And so I'll go back. So here, people were walking their dogs. We made a formal dog run with water and seating and shade for the dog walkers. We kept the lawn area, put in a restaurant over here, and bike racks and made the historic elements more visible. So this is what the park looks like now. This is a sculpture. They put in a cafe. This is very, very important point. If you want to bring a restaurant into a new space, this is the most popular Greek restaurant in Houston. Very popular. It's about 15 kilometers from here. So they didn't go to McDonald's and they didn't go to Starbucks. They went to a beloved, famous local restaurant that was always crowded, but that was far away. And they brought it here because here they had a new audience and people already knew about it. So it was immediately popular, number one. Number two, it's not an expensive restaurant because this is mostly workers, so they come for lunch. So they want to spend $5 or $10. A fancy restaurant would not succeed here, but this has very affordable food. So the price was right and the restaurant was right. They have misters and fans to keep it cool. They do happy hour. They have beer and wine tastings. They have a lot of, they bought some sculpture. This is the dog park with water, like dogs love to splash in water. And this is where the humans sit and they get to be in a shady area. And then they do a lot of programming and concerts and films and temporary events, and people bring their kids and their families. And this is mostly a business working area. So people are coming here, driving here, taking transit. It's a destination. It's not just for people coming for the office. So is this park a destination park, or is it mostly just the people in the area using it? And that's a question. And should it be a destination park or more of a neighborhood park? So we say when you focus on creating a place, you do everything differently. You do design differently, you do policy differently, and you have to think across disciplines and holistically. So now we're going to talk about our exercise today, the qualities of a great place. They have to have uses and activities, things to do. And it's not just the concerts and the theatrical events, but things that are going on a daily basis, whether it's people playing badminton or games. So what is happening in the park? There's no program today. What are people doing? They're sitting. What else are they doing? What else could they do? The best public spaces are active even when there is no major concert or event, where people will bring their own, they'll bring their computer because there's Wi-Fi. They'll bring their lunch and have a picnic. They'll bring their own activity to the park. The park doesn't always have to have a lot of programs. Comfort and image. Is the seating the right kind of seating? Is it in the right place? Is it clean? Is it attractive? Access and linkages. Is it easy to get to the park and walk through the park? There is transit nearby. When you're at the transit station, at the subway station, do you know the park is here? How easy is it to cross the street to get here? Is there a crosswalk? I don't remember. Is there a mid-block crosswalk here? So we'll look at that. And then sociability. Does it look like people are taking care of the park? Is there a sense that people are planting flowers or somehow cleaning up after other people, taking care of the park because they feel like it's theirs? These are the qualities that any great place or public space needs to have, that people have to feel that it's theirs and they value it. So these are some of the things that we'll be looking at today, and I'll go through the form, but we're going to be analyzing those 4 quadrants in terms of how well this park is performing. So is it convenient, walkable? Is it easy to figure out? Like I was with a friend of mine, and he said, "Where's your meeting?" And I said, "The Artist House." He goes, "Well, what building is that?" I said, "I don't know. I have a map." He says, "How do you know it's the Artist House? Does it say Artist House? How do I say Artist House, ODSO, in Korean in case I can't find the Artist House?" So, is there orientation that says Artist House? And is it connected to other destinations? So is it easy for people who have mobility impairments to get here? Or people either in wheelchairs or little kids with baby strollers? Are there lots of steps and curbs? Or is it easy to walk your bicycle through? How accessible is it? Universal design, I think you all kind of know that expression. The bus stops here, should we design them so that they look like this building or look like they're part of an art park? they're just the typical bus stop. So the bus stop could have more of a presence, that it's like the Maronie Park bus stop, and the bus stop could look a little bit more like it's part of the park. Is this a place for bicycle rental? Are people riding their bikes here and things? And I know this is so funny because you were just talking about how they closed the street and it didn't work. You could try it again. I don't know. You could just say no drinking. No alcohol allowed, maybe. I don't know. We closed Broadway 2 years ago in New York. This is the Broadway before, this is after. And when they did it, you see that they didn't really know it would be successful. So this is all like temporary furniture, like people brought furniture from their homes and their apartments because they didn't have any furniture yet. They just had a street that was closed. These are, and then you can like rent, people brought their own lawn chairs because they wanted to sit in Broadway. So that's what I mean. You don't have to provide all the seating necessary, but if you provide the place, people will bring their own chairs sometimes. And then as because everything has to happen in phases. So step one was, oh my God, people are here bringing their furniture. Step two was putting out temporary amenities. All of this is temporary and movable. Even this surface, you can peel. I've seen this in Tohano, and just it's like a rubbery surface. You can take it up and put the street back if you need to. The plants are in pots. Everything can be moved. So this was the experiment. And here's another example of the experiment and what it did to rationalize and make this intersection easier for pedestrians to get across. So it might be time to close the street again, but you have to maybe have a program and a reason. You can't just close the street to close the street. You have to have a reason while you're doing it. And parties are good, but the reason they did it here was because Times Square was so crowded that no one wanted to go there anymore. There were too many people, and the cars were mostly taxis, and they needed more space for people to be there. Uses and activities should be fun and vital and affordable and free and things like that. So even thinking about fun things here like dance classes, exercise classes, Tai Chi, Taekwondo classes, which is more, for kind of local folks. This may or may not be appropriate for here, but temporary, volleyball, sand, skateboarding. These are just examples from other parts of the world. So this is what we show people because they say, oh, we can't do that. We go, because they did it here. Of course you can do it. They go, oh, okay. Oh, we can do it. Is it, there's a beautiful garden out here, but, could there be more gardens or community gardens, having kids grow food? Are there a place for dogs? Do people bring their dogs here? If there was a place for dogs, would people bring their dogs here? Dogs are great. Why? I will tell you. People walk their dogs at times of the day when no one else is using the park. They walk their dogs at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. and they walk their dogs at night. And those are two times when the parks are empty and can be a little dangerous, and dogs bark, and dogs provide a little bit of safety, and dog walkers are sort of better than CCTV cameras. They're like a passive security presence. They're a positive use in a park that's normally empty at potentially dangerous times. So if you're a woman and you're walking through the park at 10 o'clock at night, but people are walking their dogs, you feel much safer than if you were just walking through that park alone. So we say yes to gay dogs. Dogs are good. Rock climbing, I don't know, water, is there water play? Could we do water here? A fountain maybe? Perhaps? I want you to be creative and exciting. Even on hard surfaces where you don't have a lot of grass, you can still have basketball or hockey. I know there are performances here a lot. There's also some places that are really empty. These are, this is a small little stage where you could just have a jazz combo. So is there a chance to have smaller temporary performances where you just pick it up and take it away rather than a big permanent structure? And then who could perform here? These are also, this is just a box with sand in it. And petanque is French, and there's petanque and boule, and they play it in Spain and Italy and France, and I don't know if you have your own equivalent of a Korean the art game, or you know, the giant chess. So even on the paving out here, you know, you just put out some chess pieces. So these are these small scale things that then you have all the old guys coming to play chess, or young guys coming and gals to play chess. Things like that. Dance classes. Learn how to dance. There's art and culture. We could learn how to do dancing here. They do that at Lincoln Center. You can take ballroom dancing classes. Farmers market. You know, I don't know if there's a there's a market here. Is this a place for a food market? Or maybe artists selling things, or designers doing something on weekends. And this is in the street too. And then the amenities, to look at the quality of the amenities, the lighting, the flowers, the seating. Does it look beautiful, historic, inviting, friendly, and green and sustainable? Are there things that we could do here to make this a little bit of a greener space? Could we use solar light? Could we use landscaping to collect the storm water? Or is there possible for recycled materials here as well? These are just questions, lots of questions. Do it again. Thank you. 감사합니다. Thank you. And you know, here's the 9 people bench. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 8, 9. Is this the right kind of seating, or do we want more movable seating? Or tables? Are there tables out there? This is very decorative. You've got beautiful design, tables and chairs everywhere in Seoul. You know, can we bring some of them over here? Or do something really kooky, you know, with art and sort of an interesting cafe sculptural element. Make the art sort of part of the amenities. Or big sculptures, contemporary art, outdoors. I know there is some art out there, but you know, here you can sit on it, and here it sprays water and makes you cool. So it's a function. It's not just standing there static. You can interact with it. This is in Fort Myers, Florida. This is it's a metal canister that has artist names etched in it with a light, and it just reflects. So think about night lighting. What does this park look like at night? Is there lighting at night? Can we use the art to kind of highlight this place even at night and even in the winter time? And food vending, carts and kiosks, things that are movable and flexible. This whole thing collapses to be this wide. All of this shrinks in and you just open it up. So it's very flexible place. And then sociability. Are there people socializing? We say that you know a public space is good if you see people kissing. So it's really about designing places for people to kiss. There was a lot of kissing yesterday in Sunju River Park. There was a tremendous amount of kissing. Because it's a really good park. It's really a fun place. So are people kissing? Are they talking? Are there different kinds of people, old people, young people, using the space? You know, kids being affectionate with one another. People just sort of like, you know, reading someone else's paper, or watching somebody else do something, just these casual social interactions that are really informal and spontaneous. You can't design that, but you can design a space that supports that happening. So this is what we're going to do, and I actually need my schedule. What we're going to do now, and we are just about on time. I'm going to divide you into 5 groups. And each of your groups will go out and evaluate the park. So here we are, 13:45 to 14:45. Small group walking tours and evaluation of site. Each team will be assigned a site to evaluate and generate ideas for how it can be improved. The instructions here are on the 2nd page. And we've decided to do all of this in English, but as you know, my show is 한국어 and English, okay? You will be divided into teams, and you will, when you get to your site, look around the whole site, choose one person to write down everyone's comments, okay? Because you have your form, but we want one person in each group to write down everyone's comments. use the Placemaking form to evaluate. Let me just put this here. This is your form. So this part, you will rate the place as a team. Don't spend a whole lot of time. You have 1 hour on site. I don't want you spending more than 20 minutes on this, on evaluating how the place is working. And you will rate it in terms of, does it meet these qualifications? No. Or yes, like, is it attractive? If it's not attractive, it gets an Han. You say Han or Il? I never remember which to do, but Han. And if it's very attractive, it gets set. So you will do that as a team, and you'll just circle those answers. Then you will answer the questions on the other side of the form, also as a team. What do you like best about this place? What could be done in the short term, quickly to make changes? What could be done in the long term? Then you need to interview someone and ask them what they think. And then you need to think about who the partners are that can help you do that. So that you'll do for like 40 minutes. So 20 minutes on this, about not too long, and then more time on this. You have an hour. Then you will come back here at, what did I say? You will come back here at 14:45, and we will have tables set up, and each of you will sit at the table with your team members, and then you have about an hour, you don't need an hour, maybe 45 minutes, to bring all your ideas together, because each site will have 2 small groups working together. So then you'll have to come to consensus. And you will write down all of your fabulous ideas, and then we'll go around the room and you will report back from 15:45 to 16:30 what you found. Because the idea is that at the end of the day, it's very hard for anybody to evaluate an entire park, an entire place, because it's so complicated. There's so many things going on. But it's much easier if you just take a small part of that and evaluate it. Because when you come back and Group A, and I did American letters, hope that's okay. When Group A talks about their entrance, and by the time that all the 5 groups have reported back, there will be a vision and a plan for the entire park. But it's very hard as designers to design a whole park, but it's often easier to do the smaller pieces and then put them together with your partners. So that's sort of our plan here. So Group A will look at the entrances, 1, 4, and 5, the cafe, the playground, and the front of the Arco. Group B will look at entrances 2 and 3. I want you to cross the street. There's the management office there and the counseling center, so that's part of what we'll be evaluating. Group C is looking at the entrance and area around this building and entrance number 6. Group D is looking at the east edge, the art center, and the commercial edge. And then Group E is looking at the middle of the park. You think, okay, the park is just E, it's just the middle. No, the park is E and all the uses around it. And these are some of the pictures right out here. So then I say, 질문은 있었어요? Does anyone have any questions at this point? Okay, because you do have your, so we're going to divide you in groups. You're going to go to the site, you're going to do your game, and then you'll come back here in an hour, and we'll go from there. And you also have your agendas with you.